At the end of the 1970s, when life was simpler and children's dreams grew in the alleyways just as flowers bloom in the fields after the rain, I remember an incident that still lingers in my memory, pulsing with nostalgia whenever its shadow crosses my mind. We used to live in the Konizak neighborhood in the city of Acre, that small town suspended between the mountains, whose narrow streets and winding alleyways were our vast playground. And our neighbors were part of our lives, as if we were one big family, knowing each other by name, sharing in each other's joys and feeling each other's pain. At that time, one of the neighbor's children had bought a medium-sized bicycle. To me, that bicycle was a piece of a dream, as if it were a spaceship that had landed to open the doors of adventure for us. We would look at it and circle around it in admiration. We imagined ourselves riding it, flying through the neighborhood streets like a bird flitting from branch to branch. Days passed until the owner of the bicycle announced that he wanted to sell it for 3 dinars. 3 dinars, for a child my age at the time, was a fortune beyond imagination. And although the amount seems modest by today's standards, it was, for me, a huge obstacle. How could a child in those days possibly have that amount of money? But I wanted it with all my heart. And I felt that this was my chance to enter the world of grown-ups, the world of cycling and adventures. I went to the one who had always been my warm embrace and my greatest supporter. My dear grandmother on my father's side, may God have mercy on her. She was a remarkable woman despite the simplicity of her life, strong in her kindness and wise in her words. She earned her daily bread with dignity. She would spin threads with her own hands from animal wool, and would knit thick winter socks from them to sell at the market, helping herself and her family. I sat beside her and began my attempts to persuade her. At times, I promised her that I would help with the chores, and at other times, I assured her that I would look after the bicycle as if it were a treasure. Sometimes, I would simply give her a look that could move a small heart. She looked at me in silence, and in her eyes there was a mixture of tenderness and pride. Until finally she agreed, and took out 3 dinars from her hard-earned money. That day was one of the happiest days of my childhood. I ran as if I were carrying a treasure and bought the bicycle, the strangest thing about which was that its wheels were made of fabric. Yes, they weren't made of rubber as usual. Yet despite that, it still moved and opened doors for me to a whole new world of freedom. On that bicycle, weaving through the alleys of Konizak, I learnt how to ride, how to balance myself, and how to enjoy the simple speed, as if I were flying from one corner to another, from one passageway to the next. And it wasn't just about me. My humble bicycle became a traveling school, with children learning to ride it one after the other. My cousins and neighbors took their turns on it and started learning to ride after me, until the bicycle became a shared symbol of childhood friendship and unforgettable memories. The bicycle wasn't just a means of transport, but a symbol of a new chapter in my life. It was a stage where I learnt to rely on myself and to appreciate the efforts of others, especially my grandmother's, without whom, after God's will, I would never have been able to achieve this small yet significant dream. That memory still lives within me, reminding me that the most beautiful things in life are not necessarily the most expensive, but rather those that are tied to emotion, to family, and to the simplicity of days gone by.